Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our press briefing for Wednesday, 17th July 2024. We are coming to you live from the National Emergency Operations Center at the NADMA headquarters, and we're so excited that you're able to join us this morning. We have some great information for you this morning, and we are joined by the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Dennis Cornwall, Minister for Finance, the Honorable Andy Williams, Minister for Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, and our special guest from Garfin this morning is Mr. Dennis Felix. This morning we are going to begin on a note of gratitude, and at this time we'd like to hear from our Minister for Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, the Honorable Andy Williams.
Good morning to all. Just want to say, or to start by saying thanks to everyone who came out last weekend and who was involved in the national cleanup in Carriacou and Petite Martinique. I just want to add by saying that your dedication and hard work have made a profound difference in our community. And thank you for coming together to restore our beautiful surroundings and to make Carriacou and Petite Martinique a cleaner and safer place for us all. Your efforts exemplify the spirit of unity and care that defines our island. Let us continue to work together to preserve and protect our environment for future generations. Your commitment is truly appreciated. With heartfelt gratitude, we want to thank the Osprey for really coming to the fore when it was needed, and for their generous contribution towards this cleanup. We want to thank the caterers who made sure that the people who were cleaning had something to eat. We want to thank the heavy equipment operators and also the truck owners. And we want to thank the skilled men and women who made it possible, who took the time to really assist in the cutting and sewing in Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Also, we want to thank the local groups and international groups who took time again to assist in the process. And mostly we want to thank the ordinary citizens who took time off from their busy schedule on both days to make it up to Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and who were involved in the clearing of debris. And so we really appreciate your efforts, and from the government of Grenada we say thank you very much. We want to thank also the Ministry of Infrastructure, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Climate Resilience, and also the Grenada Solid Waste Authority. And last week was a great show. It was a success. We also was in St. Patrick the week before, and that also was a success. We saw where the community came out and they were instrumental in the cleanup of the place. And the important thing is that after we finished, you were able to see the difference and what was, in terms of what we set out to achieve. And there was a notable difference, and for that we want to say, to everyone, thank you. And as we continue this process, we look forward to everyone who will come forward again to make this effort again successful. This weekend, we continue this weekend, and on Saturday and Sunday, the Osprey will leave the carnage at 6 a.m. On both days. If you are interested, you can contact the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, and the contact number is 439-8665. So we look forward to everyone coming out to really make a difference and to show Carriacou and Petite Martinique that we stand with them in this time of need. And let me just again take the moment to really say thank you to our citizens and everyone who volunteered, everyone who played a part, right? It could be mental, where we help nurture people, show them support, and it could be physical, where we did the physical work and so. And it made a difference, and the citizens of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, I know, is grateful for this. So I just want to say to everyone, let's continue, let's make a difference, and let us put all efforts in restoring Carriacou and Petite Martinique to the way it was before. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And not just the way it was before, but even better. In the words of Kirsten Armstrong, when we focus on our gratitude, the tide of disappointment goes out and the tide of love rushes in. Carriacou and Petite Martinique, we stand with you to ensure that we will rise again, together and better. Thank you again, Minister. At this time, we want to move to our friend from Garfin, Mr. Dennis Felix. He's the supervisor of non-banking financial sector in Grenada, which of course includes insurance companies. So we'll hear from Mr. Dennis Felix at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman, and good morning to everyone. Honorable Prime Minister, other ministers on the head table, morning all. Firstly, let me say that we are happy for this opportunity to share with the listening public efforts that Garfin, as supervisor of the non-bank financial sector, has been taken to ensure that we have smoothness and order in the administration of claims and claim settlement as we deal with this disaster. So let me first point out that Garfin is the regulator and the supervisor of the non-bank financial sector. And for this discussion this morning, we focus on insurance companies and intermediaries. And when I refer to intermediaries, I refer to agents and brokers and sales representatives that are registered in accordance with the Insurance Act. Now, following the passage of the Hurricane Beryl on July 1st, Garfin initially contacted and held discussions with all of the general insurance companies. And just to let you know that when I refer to general insurance companies, we are referring to companies that conduct business with policy owners of real property, vehicles, and marine vessels. So we sought an update on the steps that these companies have taken to ensure that the policyholders, the claims and the concerns will be handled in a thorough, efficient and speedy manner. The responses we received were quite favorable. That is, the responses we received from the insurance companies. And they informed us of the steps that they have taken to respond, to contact the policyholders, to assist the policyholders in preparing claims if need be, and laying out clear procedures for claim settlement. Garfin then published a notice for the attention of the general public, and in order to give reassurances that all insurance companies operating in Grenada are actively supervised, they are financially sound, they meet statutory solvency requirements, they conform to accepted prudential benchmarks and practices, they maintain sufficient acceptable assets in the insurance funds that are vested in the supervisor as required. Now, this is an important development since we had Hurricane Ivan in 2004, in that we, as supervisor, we ensure that all insurance companies vest with Garfin as supervisor enough assets, acceptable assets at that, to cover all the liabilities in the event that we have a disaster, that the company can no longer carry operations. We have assets to cover those liabilities, and that didn't exist before 2004. Companies we also sought to ensure that the companies have some risk management practices as well as reinsurance. Reinsurance refers to the concept that insurance companies must also have insurance coverage. So when you insure your house, for example, with an insurance company, if it's the insurance company, in order to prepare itself to respond in instances of a disaster or a large claim, they then turn around and reinsure that asset with another larger, stronger international insurance company, so that in the event of a disaster, that local insurance company would not have to carry the liability by itself. It is shared with the reinsurer. Now, Garfin also held meetings with all the insurance brokers, because the insurance brokers represent the policyholders, and we met with the general insurance companies as well, and these are some of the issues that we discussed. We tried to find out the challenges that they were facing as they traverse the disaster areas. We also discussed requirements for temporary registration for all new insurance adjusters, because as you know, a number of insurance adjusters, that is persons who have the expertise to investigate claims settlement. Claims and claim settlement, who came into the country immediately after the hurricane to assist in that area. We also looked at requirements for the adjusters to meet the statutory requirements or other statutory requirements, for example, the tax responsibilities. We identified areas where GAFIN as supervisor can provide logistical support to assist the insurance companies as they work in the disaster areas, and they try to do so efficiently as possible. And more importantly, we sought from the insurance companies a recommitment or reassurance that, notwithstanding they have been in business for a long time, but given this challenge that we face in this disaster period, that they are committed and they have the wherewithal and the resources to handle claims in a thorough, efficient, and speedy manner. On an overall basis, based on the updates that we have received since, some companies we are informed, and their representatives, so the representatives from various companies and the adjusters, they are out in the field primarily or especially in the disaster area, areas that are severely affected, like Carriacou and Petit Martinique and St. Patrick. They are out there meeting with the policy owners, assisting them in preparing necessary claims and carrying out assessments with a view to settling those claims speedily. So I just want to say that at this time, that we have word from some companies that there are instances where payments have already been made to policyholders, and I think that is good. In fact, over the last couple of days, I have had comments from individuals who told me that they are quite happy or surprised in some instances that immediately upon the passage of the hurricane, their respective insurance companies contacted them, giving them information as to how to reach the companies and how to respond to claims if they needed to do so. So at this time, I want to say that GAFIN, as supervisor, we remain committed to provide support to the insurance industry, and we continue to monitor the issue of claim settlement over the coming weeks. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Felix. Indeed, we are very happy that some insurance have already processed claims. Indeed, good news for some of our homeowners. I know this is a very busy time for you, and we appreciate you coming on this morning to speak on insurance and GAFIN. We'll now move to the Minister for Finance, the Honorable Dennis Cornwall.
Okay, pleasant good morning to our listeners on Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, and in the diaspora. We are happy to be here again today at this press conference to give an update as to where we are at the Ministry of Finance in terms of what changes have been made since our last press briefing. Let me start by speaking about the Grenada Disaster Relief Fund. This was a fund that was set up to basically allow well-wishers, supporters to make good on some of the commitments that we have gotten so far. So you will see we have a figure of 2.91 million as of July 17th. That figure has to be up by an additional 1 million EC dollars that we have received since from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. So that figure should now read EC 3.91 as part of the Grenada Disaster Relief Fund. Moving on, we have decided on the suspension of the rules and targets in the Fiscal Resilience Act Section 9 of the Act says that the minister may, by order subject to negative resolution, suspend the public debt target and primary balance rule under Section 8 at any time during the fiscal year where any of the following occur. A major economic shock resulting from. Section 2 says a disaster arising from a natural hazard as declared by the authorized national, regional, and international agency, or the disaster declared pursuant to Section 55 of the Disaster Management Act of 2023. So what does that mean for us? It gives us the flexibility to incur debt for recovery efforts if needed. At present, we have the central government debt to GDP ratio of 60.4%, the public debt to GDP of 75.1%. And when I refer to public debt, it includes central government debt as well as debt from our statutory bodies. Government policy is to prioritize grants and concession debt finance. In other words, we have committed ourselves to borrow monies if need be at concessional terms for the most part at this point in time. Flexibility to increase expenditure for relief and recovery debts. Currently, under the Fiscal Resilience Act, we have a primary balance target of 1.5% of GDP. We are hoping to be able at least to take on board all the expenses that are needed to replace the assets that were damaged on Grenada as a result of the storm, so we can basically use that facility to spend up to the limit or beyond if needs be. Government has also been considering the fiscal incentives in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. And so government will implement a fiscal incentive package to support the rebuild and repair of homes and other structures, as well as the reactivation of businesses effective August 1st, 2024. Details will be provided in the last week of July on this measure. We're also going to have a consultation with businessmen and women in Carriacou and Petite Martinique to get their views on matters affecting them in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. The feedback from this consultation will inform our fiscal incentives. We're also going to look at other incentives in the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, which government will implement as a waiver on all taxes and duties on all relief supplies imported for personal use. And this includes barrel or boxes or crates up to the 31st of December 2024. These boxes, the contents of these boxes will be items of foodstuff, clothing, and household items. Again, households will be limited to 2 barrels or box or crates per family or household. At this point, I want to say that since the last press briefing, we have now received the insurance payout from CRIF SPC, and we also are happy to let the public know that despite all the commitments and donation that we have received thus far, again, this constitutes just a small portion of the funds that would be needed to rebuild Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and therefore we continue to work with our partners and donors and friends to make sure we can raise as much funds as possible to allow us to rebuild Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique in a bigger and better way. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Cornwall, for those updates on Hurricane Beryl relief measures and, of course, fiscal incentives for our people. We want to move now to the Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, for his presentation.
Thank you, Press Secretary. Pleasant morning to the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. A pleasant morning to the colleagues who are joining me at the press conference, and a special morning to those who are actually viewing and listening to us live. I want to start with regional updates in terms of the support Grenada as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines have been receiving from our regional partners and colleagues. And I want to preface that by indicating that Grenada will host the CARICOM Heads of Conference meeting on the 28th and 30th of July. So I'm going to repeat, Grenada will host the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting on the 20th and 30th of July. This meeting was originally scheduled for the same week that Hurricane Beryl struck Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and later on Jamaica. And so the decision was taken by myself as chairman, together with the Secretary General of CARICOM and our colleague heads, that in the circumstances it would not have been advisable to host the meeting in Grenada in light of the devastation caused to Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique by the hurricane, in light of the fact that St. Vincent and the Grenadines also suffered extensive devastation, and that the hurricane was on its way to do damage to neighboring islands in the north, in particular Jamaica. So now that the hurricane has passed, now that it has left a wake of destruction in its path, we nonetheless recognize that part of demonstrating our resilience, part of demonstrating the fact that we may be knocked down, but that we will get up and rise again, it is important for us to send the message that Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Jamaica, and our CARICOM brothers and sisters, Barbados, are still here. We will continue fighting, and we will rise again. So the CARICOM Heads of Conference meeting will proceed on the 20th to the 30th of July. Plans are well advanced for the meeting to be hosted successfully, primarily in the parish of St. George and South St. George in particular, and in St. David. So more details on this will be forthcoming in the coming days and weeks. A successful hosting of this event also requires significant volunteers from Grenada. So all of the persons who had previously volunteered, and if you're not negatively impacted by Hurricane Beryl, we would obviously encourage you to come out and to give our CARICOM brothers and sisters a warm Grenadian welcome, and to demonstrate that despite the challenges that we are facing, that we also spend time thinking about our brothers and sisters, sharing the little we have with them, and ensuring that they enjoy their time in Grenada, and that we host a successful event. Speaking of thinking of our brothers and sisters who are in a similar position, myself, together with the Premier of the Cayman Islands who visited Grenada yesterday morning, as well as colleague heads of government from the OECS territories of Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, all visited St. Vincent and the Grenadines yesterday, and in particular the islands of Union Island and Canoan, to see firsthand the devastation wrought to the Grenadine Islands by Hurricane Beryl. I can tell you that Union Island in particular is just as devastated as Carriacou and Petite Martinique. So we are in this together with our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with our brothers and sisters in Barbados and in Jamaica. And notwithstanding our own challenges here, I thought it was important for us to demonstrate a show of solidarity to our brothers and sisters in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I want to thank Prime Minister Gonzalez for taking time out from his busy schedule to tour the devastation with myself and colleague heads of government. I want to express my profound gratitude to the Premier of the Cayman Islands, who came to Grenada with a large contingent of officials from the Cayman Islands, including the opposition leader and the Speaker of the House and members of Parliament, who brought in $50,000 worth of aid, and who had donated $200,000 towards the Grenada relief effort. A similar package was donated to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines by the Premier of the Cayman Islands. And so again, it demonstrates the regional show of solidarity, not just in actual relief or cash donations, but by persons actually journeying to the island to demonstrate their solidarity with the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. So I want to particularly thank her for that. As you're aware, on Sunday as well, a large vessel journeyed from Guyana and docked in Carriacou, and relief supplies from Guyana and Suriname, including building materials, food items, tarpaulins, generators, etc., were all part of a very large donation valued close to $700,000 donated to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique by the people and governments of the Republic of Guyana and Suriname. So again, we want to thank our brothers and sisters within the CARICOM region for the tremendous support that they have given to Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines in particular during this difficult time. And I think it augurs well for the continued unity, growth, and solidarity within CARICOM. And so we are honored to be able to host the CARICOM heads of government at the end of July, notwithstanding the challenging and difficult time that we find ourselves in. I wish to point out that the damage assessment continues it is not an easy thing to do in circumstances, particularly in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, where you have no power, where you have no water, and you have no place to live in or no place to conduct business in. And so it is a tedious process, but we must do it. We must do it if we are able to accurately assess the financial consequences of the damage and ruin that has been wrought upon Grenada and the cost it will take to rebuild. And so the government is seeking to rely on its international partners, the United Nations, the World Bank, the European Union, ECLAC, and other agencies to do a comprehensive damage assessment. We anticipate this will take place within the next month to two, so that we can then present as accurate as possible to the nation, to the region, and to the wider world the extent of the damage wrought by Hurricane Beryl. I'm aware that several persons have been asking us to give ballpark figures. We have been advised by Minister Lennox Andrews, and we concur with that advice, that simply throwing figures out simply because we've been asked is not the responsible thing to do, and that we should seek as much as possible to ensure that we are accurate with our assessment, and that when we present those figures to the world, it's an accurate reflection of what has in fact happened. But we want to emphasize that we cannot underestimate the extent of the damage, the extent of the relief, and the extent of the recovery. And I will speak briefly about two sectors so that we appreciate what we are treating with. In the marine and fishing sector, we've had widespread destruction to aqua and culture. Most, if not all, of the CMOS nurseries have been completely destroyed. In the case of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, the mariners have taken a severe battering. You have several boats that are either completely destroyed, significantly damaged, fallen over, turned over. We have several, if not tens, of boats that are stuck in the mangroves, that have been beached, that are significantly damaged. All of this has to be accounted for. All of this has to be removed and repaired, and it has to be paid for. And we have to appreciate that, particularly with boats, there is the risk of leaking oil or leaking fuel. And we have to be able to act quickly to be able to ensure that we can protect our already significant degraded marine environment. So this is just one example of the kind of extensive damage that has been caused both to business, to industry, and to the environmental ecosystem. I want to speak a little about agriculture, particularly in the northern part of Grenada. There has been significant damage to all crops, short crops and our more traditional long crops, or nutmegs, or cocoa, bananas, plantains, avocado, you can name them. They've all, mangoes, fruit trees, have suffered significant and extensive damage. It means that the government will have to work with our farmers and our farmers' cooperatives to not just get building materials, but to assist farmers with clearing the lands, clearing the debris, with getting planting material, fertilizers, and starting the process all over again. During that period, our farmers will not have any funds because they have nothing to sell. And so it means the government will have to consider providing income support by the farmers who are impacted. As the Minister of Finance indicated, this is not something we can simply do by the press of a button. It requires us to have a clear understanding of the extent of the destruction, the number of farmers who've been impacted, and to engage with them and their various cooperatives as well to ensure that the fiscal incentives, the support that we'll provide is support that is meaningful, that is tangible, and that will ultimately lead to the rebuilding of our agriculture, or aqua and mariculture, in a most robust and sustainable manner. It may include, for example, introducing new crops to the island, crops that can perhaps better withstand the challenges of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes. So all of this is an extensive and an intensive process that will require significant resources, both in terms of finance as well as technical capacity. We would clearly need assistance from our development partners and regional and international partners as well as we embark upon this process. The other two sectors that I will touch on briefly is that of education and that of public health. School is going to start roughly in 6 weeks in Grenada for sure. It will be a significant challenge to resume schooling at all, or to any significant degree, in Carriacou and Petite Martinique within the next 6 to 7 weeks. First, many of the schools are currently the only place of refuge for the citizens of Carriacou and Petite Martinique because there are no homes. And so most of the schools are functioning as shelters. Some of the schools have been completely destroyed, like the Dover Government School, for example. And some of the schools are also damaged. So that's the first challenge we have. Second, housing has almost been completely wiped out in Carriacou and Petite Martinique. So even if our students and their parents wanted to go to school, there is in fact no homes. The little that they've salvaged is still subject to the climatic conditions, the sun, the rain, the leaking roofs, the no roofs, etc. So the Minister of Education and his team are currently assessing and reviewing the situation to make recommendations to the government and to the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique as to how we treat with education. At this point in time, we have not come to any firm or definitive conclusion, but we anticipate that within the next week or so, we will have to make firm and decisive decisions on those, because we have to obviously be able to implement them in a time where our main concern would be to minimize the period of time where students in Carriacou and Petite Martinique do not have exposure to formal education, because the longer that happens is the more that they will in fact will be disadvantaged by this process. On the issue of public health, the devastation poses significant challenges to public health. The Ministry of Health, together with our regional partners, including CARPHA, is paying very close attention to the situation. As you would be aware, many of our citizens are in shelters, so sanitation, access to water is a key issue. The rain is falling, we have significant debris, and so significant risk of buildup of stagnant water and the mosquitoes that come with this. So we have to be very vigilant that we do not have a proliferation of mosquitoes and or mosquito-borne diseases that could create a public health issue. We have to be concerned about the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. We cannot be naive. Human beings are human beings, and they will continue behaving as human beings. We need to continue the education. We need to continue safe sexual practices, and so that is something that we are paying attention to. Critical in all of this is the mental and emotional health of our citizens who have been impacted. We recognize that there will be a need for widespread and sustained counseling and psychosocial support. We are not underestimating this. Many of us who have not actually experienced the wrath of Hurricane Beryl, whose homes have not been touched or destroyed in any way, may find it difficult to appreciate why, if you visit Carriacou or Petite Martinique, you may see the residents simply sitting, doing nothing. It is because they're traumatized. It is because they're in shock. It is because in 45 minutes they've lost everything that they have worked for over the several decades to build. So it is not something that some of them may be able to simply snap out of and get on as if nothing has happened or if life as usual is happening. It is not. If you have not visited Carriacou and Petite Martinique, it is difficult to understand the tremendous upending of lives and livelihoods that has occurred. And even though many of us experienced the same thing 20 years ago, we have a way sometimes of revising history that is kind to our own memory in terms of our own behavior. But if you'd recall, there was almost a complete breakdown of law and order in Grenada in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Ivan. There was widespread looting. Prisoners were on the loose. It took our brothers and sisters from Trinidad, from the region, to come in and help restore law and order, help with the public cleanup, help with the public health. And we, as citizens on the mainland of Grenada, are required to do just that to our brothers and sisters in St. Patrick and our brothers and sisters in other parts of Grenada who've been impacted, but most crucially our brothers and sisters in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, where there's been complete and widespread destruction. So I'm raising these factors because I want us to be more empathetic. I want us to be more appreciative of the significant trauma that our brothers and sisters are undergoing in Carriacou and Petite Martinique in particular, and in some parts of the northern part of the country, so that we can be more caring, more understanding, more patient, and more helpful to them in this significant time of need. We are our brothers' keepers, and I want to emphasize and remind us of that fact. That having been said, the government, volunteers, our regional international partners, our donor agencies are working around the clock to ensure that sufficient relief is available to all those impacted as much as possible, to ensure that we begin the cleanup. And the cleanup is significant because if you go to Carriacou once and you are not depressed, you are not human. If you go there 2 or 3 or 4 times, you will become depressed. And to assist with minimizing that, we need to ensure that the cleanup happens as quickly as possible. But the cleanup task is mammoth. It is going to take several weeks. It is going to take hundreds of persons. It is going to take a lot of equipment. Notwithstanding the tremendous work by our volunteers led by MIT and the Ministry of Carriacou and PT Martinique Affairs, we are going to have to hire persons. We are going to have to hire equipment to work over a sustained period. And our target will be to hire the citizens of Carriacou and PT Martinique first, because there is no other economic activity available at this time. To work on the cleanup, the government has begun receiving proposals. We will be trying to encourage as many persons as possible in Carriacou and PT Martinique who are able-bodied and fit to take part in this, what I would call mass cleanup approach over the next several weeks, to restore some sense of the cleanliness and the beauty that Carriacou and PT Martinique is known for. Similarly, the government will be working on actualizing a plan that can identify buildings that are still structurally sound, but whose roofs would have been blown off, to see how we can work with our regional partners to put on roofs, even if they are temporary, as quickly as possible on those buildings, so that we could minimize the number of persons who remain in shelters. We have received commitments again from our brothers and sisters in Dominica and St. Lucia and elsewhere to assist with sending carpenters and other tradesmen and artisans to be able to assist with this process. Of course, the devil is in the details, and we have to be able to work out the logistics to keep them, particularly in Carriacou and PT Martinique, where there is limited space, so that they can begin this process. I therefore also want to urge Grenadian tradesmen, artisans, etc., who may have time on the weekend or so, to begin the process of joining with us as volunteers to assist with, in fact, beginning to put temporary roofs, or even if it's tarpaulins, on the houses of persons in Carriacou and PT Martinique and in St. Patrick, so that we can ease the burden on the shelters, and we can minimize, as I said, public health issues arising from shelters being open for a prolonged period with citizens there. So again, we have to operate to some extent as if we are in a state of normalcy for those parts of Grenada where there has been no significant impact. But for those where there's been significant impact, we are dealing with a crisis. We are dealing with an emergency that, if not managed properly, could have other long-term effects for those parts of Grenada that are not impacted. And so I want to assure the public that the government, its partners, its stakeholders are doing everything within their power to ensure that we can begin to assist in a meaningful and sustained way all of those who are impacted. NOASA, for example, has restored water to almost all of Grenada. I think it's probably only about 2 or 3% that are yet to receive water. GrenLec is working assiduously to try and complete the restoration of power throughout Grenada. St. Patrick is still, some parts of St. Patrick are still without power. We do have regional support in that endeavor. Teams from Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Lucia and Dominica have begun to arrive. We expect the bulk of them will be deployed next week in Carriacou and PT Martinique to help with that process there as well. The generators in Carriacou are functioning, but regrettably there aren't enough buildings to connect to the generator. So the load still isn't sufficient, and there's a certain risk to the generator itself if we can't get buildings connected quick enough. So you would still find in many instances people are on generators because the electrical inspectorate has to confirm that it is safe to provide them with power. So there are some silver linings that are emerging coming out of this very dark period, and so we want to assure the public that we will continue updating them, continue providing information as we have it, continue letting you know of our plans. I will conclude by saying the government does not know it all. Far from. We are relying on our citizens. We are relying on the business community. We are relying on our various sectors, particularly those that have been impacted, to come forward with their suggestions, to come forward with their recommendations as to how we go about the rebuilding process. As the Minister for Finance has indicated, on Friday we will seek to meet with the business community in Carriacou and PT Martinique to get their views on what should be some of the fiscal incentives or recommendations or policies the government should pursue in terms of assisting with the rebuilding and business reactivation in Carriacou and PT Martinique. Similarly, on mainland Grenada, we will seek to engage with the business community, particularly the construction industry, because they will be crucial in assisting us to ensuring that we take the appropriate measures to incentivize the rebuilding and the continued building of homes and businesses and other properties in Grenada at a much higher standard to ensure that we do not have the level of damage and destruction that we've had as a result of Hurricane Beryl. So we will be planning those engagements. We will be inviting members of the public and members of various sectors, farming, fishing, etc., to come out and share your views, make your recommendations so that we could get discussions and have consensus and national buy-in. I want to conclude by asking the Conference of Churches, our church goers, our spiritual leaders, to also step up and play their part at this crucial time. Not only do we need your prayers, but we also need your hands and feet to assist with the counseling, to assist with the sharing, assist with the emotional challenges that many people may have, and to assist with the cleaning and rebuilding efforts. So I'm making a special plea to the Conference of Churches, its membership, the wider religious and spiritual community in Grenada to also demonstrate your support and leadership for people at this time, particularly those who are badly impacted by this, because there is a significant role for you to play as well in this process. So thank you, and may God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister, for your updates and, of course, for your plea to our religious and spiritual community. And we want to say thanks again to all those who have been assisting at this time with the rebuilding efforts of Carriacou, Petite Martinique, and the northern parts of Grenada. At this time, we want to hear from our journalists online. We have quite a few of them online, but this morning we want to try to keep it short. The Prime Minister and the team were very thorough, so I know they've shared a lot of information, so we're going to keep it short. We have 10 minutes for questions this morning, but we're going to hear from you journalists at this time. Linda Stricker, you've been online with us for a while, so you may proceed. If you have a question, you may go ahead. All right. Thank you, Linda. Peter Regis, do you have a question for us at this time?
No, not at this time.
All right. Thank you very much.
I do have a question. Apparently I muted myself. Can I go ahead now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that earlier. Good morning to you and the members of the panel. My question is, the first question is to the Minister for Finance. With regard to the suspending of the escape clause, can you tell us when that will be done and what is the period of time that will be in place for?
Well, I can say that we have had extensive dialogue and discussion at cabinet level yesterday, and we have, based on the submission, we have certain things to still fine-tune and clean up. Certainly after that, we should be able to at least take that position next Monday and be able to at least inform the general public on the way forward with some of the measures.
Now, within 24 hours, I think on the third news conference after Beryl, the Prime Minister announced that you had written to the international partners seeking a suspension of the loan agreements. Have you heard back from them, and what is the decision made with regard to that?
We have not sought a suspension of the loan agreements. What we have done is basically interact with them and utilize the measures that we are allowed under the loan agreement to defer payments if needs be. We began the process even before Beryl hit us on Grenada because we were aware, based on the meteorological information, that Grenada was likely to be impacted by Hurricane Beryl, and therefore days before Beryl hit us, we already put things in motion to ensure that we can interact with our partners at the World Bank, IMF, and other entities that we borrow from.
And my final question is, listening to the Prime Minister, we're getting the impression that work needs to be done soon. And this year is 20 years after Hurricane Ivan. We still see two main government structures That's the former York House as well as the former head Governor General, whom still to be touched. They probably soon become heritage replicas. Has the government in the cabinet in their discussion and deliberation set a timeline and priorities for the rebuilding of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique? And if so, can you share with us what is hoped to achieve by at least with now and the next December?
A final question. I'll allow Prime Minister or
Yes.
Prime Minister.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Stricker. No, we have not set a timeline for the rebuilding of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique, or for that matter, government infrastructure within Carriacou and Petit-Martinique. As I indicated, our focus now is very much on cleaning up the enormous debris, the tons of debris that are strewn all over Carriacou and Petit-Martinique. I think that's the first priority. The second priority is ensuring that we can have a detailed damage assessment completed, and we are hoping that we can have this done within 2 months. We have to emphasize that Carriacou is not Grenada. You have to bring everything on. The airport, for example, is only functioning because you have 2 aircrafts owned by SVG Air, or operated rather by SVG Air, that are entering the airport in Carriacou only during sunlight periods. There is no telecommunication system at the airport. The roof of the airport is completely off, so the staff have no place to work, no communication equipment, etc. And that's why I'm making the point that perhaps we don't quite understand the extent of the destruction and how it severely impacts what is otherwise normal routine behavior for those who've not been impacted. So we cannot be 14 days, 15 days after the storm even talking about the timelines for when we will rebuild Carriacou and Petit-Martinique. The timelines that we have is first to clean up. The second timeline is really to get as much, at a minimum, temporary roofs put on so that persons can at least not be subject to the basic elements like rain and excessive sunshine. The third priority will then be looking at basic infrastructure that we need to make the islands more functional. So things like ensuring that we can put back the roof over the airport, ensuring that water is up, ensuring there's basic access to power, and that we can take care of the sanitation situation on the island, because that, if it's not dealt with properly, poses a major public risk that can create another crisis or catastrophe for us. So those are our basic timelines. After we have the assessment done, we will then have a sense as to the kind of resources that we would need. We would then have to find those resources, and then in earnest we would be in a position to say we anticipate, assuming we have the resources and the technical capacity, that over a 2 or 3 year period we can get back housing stock of X amount. We can build back more resilient infrastructure in terms of the electricity grid and the telecommunication system, etc. But for now, it makes no sense to just simply pick an arbitrary timeline. If I had all the money in the world, even with the money, you still have to get the human resources and the technical capacity to build. So even if someone miraculously gave us $1 billion now and said rebuild Carriacou, you still have to go find the contractors. You still have to find the designers, the engineers, the consultants, the marine biologists and so on, who are going to assist us in planning how we deal with coral restoration, how we deal with the fish stock, all of the engineers who are going to assist with the boat repairs, boat rebuilding, etc. So it is something that will take quite a while. There's no question about that.
All right, thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Linda. We have Johnson Richardson. You have a question for us this morning. You may proceed.
Yes. Good morning. Good morning now. I think I want to direct my question, I don't know, to the Minister of Finance or Prime Minister of you said, Prime Minister, you mentioned that agriculture was dealt a serious blow in this from Beryl, and there's no question about that. However, after the farm lands that were destroyed, basically some of those are still being paid for by some of the owners. And of course, there are instances where there are people that are directly dependent on those farms for their livelihood. So of course, a landowner might in some cases have his mortgage to pay and still have people depending on him for survival. Does the government have any plans to make those people halfway and assist with offsetting those costs, while of course you try to get you from back on track. And my second question has to do with the issue in Carriacou for people who are for the public workers who are attached to different areas in Carriacou. Would they be relocated to mainland Grenada while the area of work is being looked after?
All right, so I think I'd spoken to the government's approach to dealing with farmers and the farming community earlier. I'm not sure if you heard, but I'll repeat it. As I said, the government is considering the appropriate response to treat with the destruction caused by Hurricane Beryl to the farming community. It means everything is on the table. We are considering, we intend to meet with the farming community and the cooperatives in particular that also represent the farming community. There are a couple of things that I can point out, and I think the minister at his press briefing last Friday would have also pointed that out. We have, as part of the catastrophic risk insurance, an excess rainfall policy that was meant to address the impact of excess rainfall on farmers. So there's funding there. The Grenada Cooperative Nutmeg Association, through the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Economic Development, just before Hurricane Beryl, bought some additional insurance to deal with crop insurance for farmers. We are optimistic that the policy will be honored and there will be an opportunity for funds to be available there. As part of the catastrophic risk insurance, there is a vulnerability element. I believe it's give or take about 10%, which has to be earmarked for persons who have been made vulnerable as a result of Hurricane Beryl. Clearly, members of the farming and fishing community are two such exact communities that would be impacted. And so the actual particular measure, whether it's offsetting mortgages, whether it's giving some income support, whether it's paying for helping to clean up your land, whether it's providing you with cheaper fertilizer or free fertilizer or labor to help with replanting or finding the germplasms, all of those various bits and pieces have to be worked through, discussed with the particular farmers or groups of farmers, because what a poultry farmer would be interested in is not what a vegetable farmer would be interested in, or a cocoa or nutmeg farmer, as the case might be. I mean, there may be some commonalities, income support, for example, but different farming groups may have different interests, and so to the fishing farming, so to the fishing community. Those who outright fish would be interested in perhaps making sure that they have a boat, making sure that there's fuel, etc. Those who are doing the sea moss farming and so on would want to ensure that they can actually get back the necessary implements to go back and do the sea moss farming and so on. So the particular answers will be very involved and detailed, and as the minister said, the intention is to announce some of those by the end of July, because we need the time to engage in these kinds of discussions and processes. In relation to public workers in Carriacou who are impacted and who perhaps don't have work per se, as in the traditional work in Carriacou, there is no orchestrated plan at this time to move them to Grenada, but I can indicate already that at least one such officer is actually working from Grenada. That's the finance officer in the Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs, because there's no facilities for him to work in Carriacou as is, so he's been relocated to Grenada. What we are first seeking to do is to repurpose, as much as law and good sense will permit it, to repurpose the public officers who are working in Carriacou to do other things that are required. So clearly, if you're a teacher in Carriacou, there is no teaching taking place. What is available is perhaps shelter management, assisting with managing the shelters, with public sanitation, assisting with logistics, assisting with food distribution, relief aid, etc. So naturally, we will ask our teachers to assist in things like that, and we expect, even without asking, that is in fact what everybody is doing at this point in time. So that's part and parcel of in a sense, the natural human reaction to a lot of those things. As things normalize, which will be a long time, obviously, once school comes back, then you'd expect your teachers to go back to teaching. Once administrative aspects of Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs come back, you'd expect the administrative people to go back to it and so on. But for now, we do not have any wholesale plan to move workers to Grenada. What we probably will be doing is doing some rotations to give people in Carriacou and Petite Martinique a breather. Because working in the environments that they're working in are extremely challenging. And so from time to time, we will perhaps be sending persons up from Grenada to help relieve the challenges so that they could come to Grenada, perhaps more so for a break than anything else in the circumstances of what they're dealing with.
Right, thank you, Prime Minister. Mr. Richardson, is that it for you?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, beautiful. I have two more questions, Mr. Prime Minister. One is coming from our Facebook comments, and it may also serve as a suggestion. The question is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through their various consul generals, seeking to assist in terms of assist students when in September? For example, Canada helped Antigua a few years ago. Is this something that the government of Grenada is going to implement or look into?
To be honest, I'm not sure I'm following the question. Assist which students, as in Grenadian students in Canada?
Grenadian students in Carriacou who were affected, will they be assisted in some way or the other?
Well, no, certainly we expect that. There are many students, well, let's just start with the students who have to attend the T.A. Marichaud Community College. Many of them are homeless. In fact, I met one such student as a shelter. And that's what I'm saying. Some of the questions are, in a sense, anticipating the challenges that we have to treat with. And that's why I said the Ministry of Education will, in fact, assess the situation and then come with a comprehensive recommendations as what to do. So we certainly anticipate, for example, that for students at TAMCC, for example, in any event, most of them or a lot of them would have to relocate to Grenada to go to TAMCC in Grenada. So those are things we would obviously be seeking to address earlier rather than later, because there is no TAMCC in Carriacou. They will have to move to Grenada. And how we facilitate that, how we help the families and so on is part of the process. I'll just give another example. The Minister for Carriacou and Petite Martinique raised the fact that most persons in Carriacou and Petite Martinique would not be able to find their passports because it's lost. So obviously we I think would be proactive by identifying that and arranging so that passports could be had for the citizens of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. And I did say to him I will ask the Minister of Finance to inquire whether we would waive the fees associated with that in light of what has happened, because this is not a case where you lost your passport on your own. So the point I'm making is we are dealing with rebuilding a society. Every single facet that in a normal society you take for granted, we're going to have to treat it, from documentation, birth certificates, land papers, passports, all of those things. People have either lost them or they wet or destroyed. So simple things like that requires actual rebuilding, and the government is going to have the appropriate responses to treat with them in a holistic way rather than on an individual basis. So how we deal with all of the students is part of what we are going to deal with. And yes, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through all of our embassies and consular offices and so on, are also treating with the diaspora, treating with partners and friends of Grenada to see how we can get various forms of assistance as well.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And the final question is for the Minister of Finance. Someone wants you to elaborate on the incentive packages which will commence in August.
Okay, well, I don't think that person expect me to have the granular details of all that would be required. Again, it's work in progress. We have to continue fine-tuning, and so it would not be pertinent for me to give you all the details that you're looking for at the moment.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. And we have, I believe, Linda Straker, you have one final question. I'll permit you to do so at this time, and then we'll close for this morning. So your final question at this time.
Thank you. My final question is, the insurance money that Grenada got, how government intend to spend that money? Is it going to go into general budgetary support, or would it be used for specific projects?
Again, I do not want to make this thing a political football. The money that was received from the CRIF SPC proceeds belongs to Grenada. The government of Grenada would sit and ensure that we utilize the money in the most efficient way that benefits the entire Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. It would be foolish of me at this point in time to tell you that X amount of money is going to go to, let's say, the farmers or to the fishermen or whatever it is and so on, because again, this is work in progress. We have to ensure that we meet and make sensible decisions rather than just rushing to do things to please a particular sector of this population.
Right, thank you, Minister. And this time I want to allow our Prime Minister to make final closing comments, and then I'll bid you a good day. Mr. Prime Minister.
All right, thank you. I will perhaps speak on a less somber note. And that part of this obviously has to do with the fact that we have to build resilience. We need the economy to continue working. We need all of our sectors that are not impacted to be robust and to continue fueling economic and social activity on the island, while at the same time being empathetic to those who are less fortunate at this time. And so the hosting of the CARICOM Heads of Conference is just one of such events. As you are aware, once we get to the 3rd, 4th weeks of July, we begin to enter our carnival season in earnest. We anticipate, given that this is also a 50th anniversary of independence, that we would have large number of Grenadians in the diaspora returning to Grenada as well for Carnival, and obviously we want to encourage them to do so, but we also want to say to them who are coming back, bearing in mind, particularly for CARICOM, PT Martinique and St. Patrick, that there are a lot of people who are suffering and not as fortunate as some of us. So we want to be able to enjoy our cultural and festival activities while at the same time being sensitive to the plights of those who have become vulnerable or less fortunate as a result of the hurricane. So we certainly will be doing everything to continue to encourage economic activity on the island, and to make sure that, because we need economic activity if we are going to be able to rebuild those parts of the country that have been badly impacted, and if we are going to be able to prepare better for future events like this in the future. So while to a large extent our press briefings have been dominated by the response to the natural disaster that Hurricane Beryl has brought us, we certainly will be, as of next week, briefing the public as well on ongoing government initiatives which are not related to this, so that the public is kept abreast of some of those. So I want to again thank the public for joining us this morning, thank everyone who's been praying for the nation, and particularly thank the several hundreds of volunteers who have been giving off their time, their effort and their resources in difficult circumstances to help their brothers and sisters in need. It's a true commitment and testament to the Grenadian spirit. It's a true testament to why we were proud to be Grenadians on the 7th of February, and while after Hurricane Beryl we will continue to be even prouder of the trial state of Carriacou, PT Martinique and Grenada. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. The Honorable Deacon Mitchell. At this time, I just have one reminder that the state of emergency has been lifted, so persons wishing to travel to Carriacou to help their families and relatives, you are free to do so. The Osprey is operating, and Tyrrell Bay is also operating 3 days a week, so you are free to travel to Carriacou if you wish to assist with your friends and family and relatives in their rebuilding efforts. So at this time, I want to take the opportunity to thank you once again for joining us this morning for a press briefing for Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. I bid you a great day.